Tyranny of the Hat by Liam Campbell and Clara Lucas. Log 8. The Hike. "Which way, Broomwell?" asked Stephen, digging his hiking stick into the soil and walking up the incline. Stephen and Broomwell were taking a hike up the Coldy Fell. Mr. Richards had brought on 2 new diesels for a trial that had been newly built. Stephen had come to see them run, and every time they hiked past the railway, they would see the 2 diesels run past them with ease. "See that!" exclaimed Stephen. "Smooth running and no steam. They don't spoil the view." Broomwell usually said nothing, but waved at the diesels. Or at least one of them. The diesels had been given the working titles of Shillow and Banefoss. Shillow was the nicer engine, and was very kind to their steam ancestors. Banefoss, however, put up a kind facade around the staff, and was rude to the steam engines. Broomwell had just so overheard his rude comments, and turned his back on Banefoss. Broomwell had picked the one he liked more out of the bunch. Stephen had obviously picked the opposite. As they hiked, Stephen had taken glances at the map he had brought with them. "This way, sir," gestured Broomwell as they took a trail farther from the line as Banefoss's horn blared through the valley. Stephen observed the map, not paying mind to the engine that passed them from a far distance. "Everything all right, sir?" Stephen looked at the map once more before smacking his lips. "What's Machan's Cave?" asked Stephen curiously. "Do you know anything about Sudrian history?" "May have, slept through a few of those classes in school." "How about Saint Machan himself?" He was a saint?" Broomwell sighed, putting his palm to his forehead. "Saint Machan came to Sodor in the 6th century. Machan, unlike other saints, had a more solitary mind, and instead of going to more populated places, decided to become a hermit, and chose a cave in the Coldy Fell where he decided to live. They say he met the Sudrian gods through his meditation. He stayed there for the rest of his life, and gained a reputation for his wisdom. People would come to be baptized by him at Lowi Machan." "Lowi Machan? Sudrian gods?" "You don't know anything about your geography either. What Sudrian words do you know?" Let's see. There's Fell, that means mountain, and there's also, iron, which means hot. Let's see, Uni is only, Skarlowi is lake in the woods, Halwyn is river, and Reneus is divided waterfall." "More than I expected. Do you know what Coldy means?" "Hermit." "No. Coldy, in Sudriac, means companion of God. The mountain is named after him. Coldy Fell is the mountain of the companion of God. Some words are a combination. Lowi means lake, Skara means wooded hillside. Combine them together and you get Skarlowi. Shouldn't it be Skarlowi then?" "Sometimes language is simplified over centuries. Maithwaite is a perfect example. Its original spelling was Marthwaite, but it developed into Maithwaite." "Huh. So the Lowi was named after Machan then?" "Correct. Machan's the patron saint of the island." "Could we visit the cave?" "I don't think so. It's a steep slope down from the mountain this way. We'd have to go back down, travel north to the lake, and take a trail from there." Stephen, disappointed, continued on. "What other Sudrian things do you know?" he asked Broomwell as they took another steep slope. Broomwell pondered until he paused to step. "Well, I know that we should be careful for falling rocks." And he gestured to the distance, as a few large boulders fell from the side of the mountain. They crumbled into more stones as they careened down, destroying anything in their path. "We'd best be careful. They started a few years back for a yard they've been trying to build at Skarlowi Road. They've shifted the earth." He paused grimly, then dug his hiking stick back into the ground, and continued forward. He continued talking like nothing had happened. "Well, have you heard about Proteus?" "The Greek god?" "Yes, well, the man. All mythologies cross each other at some point. Proteus was a Sudrian man that was gifted with the power of the gods, and eventually became the god. The power was a burden to him, and he spent many millennia fixing his wrongdoings. They say he's fixed his wrongdoings now, and has been trying to help others." He paused and looked at Stephen for some sign of emotion. Alas, there was none. Broomwell sighed and continued on. "They named one of the Mid-Soda engines after him." "Yes, he had a similar fate to the god. Your great-grandfather knew him. He was notorious for his lamp. The Proteus god had his own lamp. He—" Hold on. You knew my great-grandfather? Stephen paused in his step. Yes, well, no. Your grandfather, Derek, had told me about his father, Bertram. His name was Bertram? Yes. Has no one told you? No. The two went silent. Father never told me anything about him. Sometimes I felt like I knew nothing about grandfather as well. I only found out recently he had a husband. And is there something wrong with that? Of course not. Do you know about Withershins? Who? Another surgering god. The trickster. Proteus is the main god. Withershins and the lady are the kids in the myth. The lady is the god of the good, or whatever the opposite of the trickster is. Withershins was tortured in his mortal form. He was gifted the gift of the gods by Proteus. However, that went to his head. There's also the Mad-Eye, Proteus's right hand. They say they see all. Mad-Eye? There's an engine. On the records, during grandfather's early days, of the same name. Must have been named after the god. Yeah, but the engine, the way it was described. Now what do we have here? The two came to a stop. There was a fork in the path. Stephen held up his map, until he realized it wasn't in his hands. Damn it, he snarled. I must have dropped it back there. Through their conversation, they had traveled a long way up. I'm not climbing all the way back up just to get a map. We'll just go. He looked at the paths. They both went into a thick forest. It was hard to see which way was the right way. There was a sign that was on the ground. The words and directions on it were indistinguishable to make out. Stephen stared at it, then pointed to the right. I say this way, he announced. Brumo hesitated. Maybe this way, he said, gesturing to the left path. We can find the railway line if we keep to the left. Then we'll know where to go from there. But this path looks like it goes up, gestured Stephen. He was right. The path on the right had an incline to it. Stephen and Brumo pondered. How about, Stephen said after a minute, I go to the left, and you go to the right. Brumo sighed. Very well, he said. Stephen paused. He had expected for Brumo to finish a sentence. To no farther response, he turned and went down his path. It had been a half hour since Stephen and Brumo split up. The path did incline, for a while, until it dipped down and down. Stephen, however, kept going. He went under a few natural arches and caves into rocky terrain. He felt stupid. Not stupid for choosing this path. No. He felt stupid for not listening to Brumo. It was a smart decision. Sometimes. Stephen felt like he never made the smart decision. He felt stupid now for many reasons. He felt stupid for not giving Bridget the position. He felt stupid for buying those grunks and all the other diesels that were on their way. He felt stupid for harassing Mr. Richards. He felt stupid for not saving her. No, it wasn't my fault. He was so lost in thought that he wasn't quite paying attention to where he was going. He had left the forest far behind and was going down the mountain, over and under cliffs and caves. He turned a corner when there was a rumble. He glanced up to above him. He saw rocks tumbling down. He looked around and saw a cave to his side. He jumped in, avoiding the rock fall. He was soon stuck. Large boulders covered the entrance. I'll just find another way out, he chuckled nervously as he tried to peer through the dark. The slightest glow was ahead of him. He followed it. It was scary. Not just scary for being alone in the cave he was trudging through. No, it was scarier being alone with his thoughts. They dug deep now. They curled through his skin, itching at him. The cave. It felt like it would never end. It wasn't my fault, he begged. It was that stupid engine. He blocked my view. I couldn't have known. No, stop it. Stop it! He caught himself. He let it get to him. How could he have let it get to him? And then he stopped. Finally, there was a light coming from around the corner of the cave. He ran forward, eager to take his mind off things. He turned and found a lamp. A normal railway lamp sat on the floor. It was on, shining a bright light. He picked it up. Someone must have left it here. He looked it over, turning it upside down. Property of the Mid-Sodor Railway, it read on the bottom. Sheesh, this is old. And yet, that light's bright. I wonder how long it's been here. He took the light and looked around. He realized now that there were many branching corridors in the cave. Each one had markings of the man who lived in the cave many centuries ago. Brummel sat at the top station. He sat on the bench with his legs folded, occasionally checking his watch. He ignored the yelling of Shane Duini and Danfoss, only looking up to see if his boss, he caught himself, if Stephen had come up. The words felt revolting. He felt bad, though. He was best friends with Charles. It was hard to see him retire, but it felt good to at least know that he was at least being kept on by his best friend's son. He had seen Stephen grow up. He was the rebel kid. He didn't always listen to his father. He clearly had wanted to write his own story, though he also knew how Charles treated his own kids. Though you would never catch him smack-talking others, Brummel would agree that Charles wasn't the best father. He clearly saw his engines more as his children than he did for his own kids. Bridget seemed to survive with this. She had enjoyed the engines herself. But Stephen had caught on to this. He knew that, from the sheer amount of paintings on the engines on the mantle of their fireplace compared to his kids, to Charles going out of his way to ignore his kids at times. Many birthdays and Christmases were spent with him at the office or the sheds, more than at home. Brummel couldn't not feel remorse for Stephen, who knew where it came from. But to go to this extent, well, something wasn't adding up. Maybe it was because of... Out of the corner of his eye, Brummel caught the lanky and very disgruntled figure of Stephen climbing up the path. He stood up and analyzed what was in his hand. What happened? What is that?
Come along, we must get going to the library.